Hey guys, it's Matt. If you're driving or just listening, you don't need to see at all the fun, dynamic, and exciting props that are going to be introduced in this video. In fact, it's just Andy who represents the masses. Andy is actually under temporary contract. He will not appear, what is it, more than 2 minutes of a video right now until we get some of his contract stipulations worked out, including a variety of different Raggedy Anns? Yeah, Raggedy Anns, because this is Andy. My original, what do you call him? A toy. He's not a stuffed animal. The original thing my mother saved from a kid, as when I was a kid, was this. This thing was in my bed. Anyway, and there's some weird backstory with Raggedy Ann and Andy. People emailing me whenever I show this. I'm not even going to go there. Whatever. If you think it's the best of pizza triangle on his nose, then whatever. This was my real toy or whatever this thing is from a kid. But for this video, if you remember the other videos, Andy represents the masses. Now, the masses is everybody around us that have not jumped ship. We have jumped ship. Everybody else hasn't. You know, your Aunt Ginny, the guy down the cul-de-sac, the girl down the cul-de-sac, or the New York pronoun down the cul-de-sac, whatever he or she chooses to be that day. You have your best friends we don't recognize anymore. And again, what's really important here is they don't recognize us, and they would be right. Okay, that we'll go through that one more time. They wouldn't recognize us. We're wrong, not right, in terms of because of the metrics of this reality in this Earth system. They're checking the boxes off. They're in line with it. They're in tune with it. We're not. So they're not recognizable to us for obvious reasons. But from the reality's perspective, they would be right, and we are not recognizable to them. Um, if we were in their court of law, we would lose because it's on their standards, their metrics, of course. So the river of insanity flows, the ship of fools goes down, and I believe I'm not going to get into the mystical and metaphysical Mandela effect. I'll talk about this some other time. It'll just be 1 minute, I promise. But I believe we live in sort of a gigantic Mandela effect, like the movie Dark City. Now, if you haven't seen Dark City, it's absolutely worth seeing. To me, Dark City is supposed to be, although there's never any formal relationship, it's supposed to be the first Matrix movie, in my opinion. I've talked about this before, where Morpheus says, you know, Neo's trying to understand, he's just aboard the Nebuchadnezzar for a few hours or a day or something like that, and they just served him the tasty wheat, and he's like, this is the shit I gotta eat for years and years in the ship. He's like, he wants to talk to Cypher to get the heck back into the Matrix, but he's like, there was a Morpheus comes forth with this horrible overacting, and if the Matrix didn't evolve into such a cult classic, and somehow his dumb overacting works, but it is terrible if you really step back and look at it. He's like, in the beginning, Neo, I can't even do it. It's so bad. It's so distant. It's not genuine. There was a man, Matrix. I'm not gonna try. There was a man who could make the Matrix work for him. He freed the first of us, Neo. He freed with us. He freed the first of us, and this is what we got: this frayed sweater shit. So he free. That Morpheus is talking about. I guess his name's John. I forget his name, John from Dark City. So anyway, guys, Dark City and the Matrix, if you combine them, that's basically in a very dark way the situation we're in, but not that dark. It just explains, I think, the mechanisms of what's going on. For the purpose of this video, let's just do Dark City. Dark City, if you haven't seen it or you don't remember, every night, I think it was at midnight, the whole reality was reset by these beings called the Strangers. And I don't think I'm gonna do the Keith or Sutherland overacting in this either, but because I need to see it, but I'll do that at some point. Um, Everybody goes to sleep. They put everyone to sleep at night, and then the whole reality changes. Buildings shift. A 10-story building becomes 5 stories. Everything physical shifts, and people's lives and who they even believe themselves to be change. So somebody falls asleep in their soup, if I remember correctly, and the guy may have on Tuesday may have been a janitor, working with what's that guy that was had all those exciting death-defying accounts at the bottom of the WTC, whatever his Rodriguez or whatever. He's Rodriguez's assistant on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday he wakes up because Dark City they reset the entire reality. He's a senior partner in the law firm, and he's uh, completely familiar with his job. I mean, he just everything resets, including what human beings are and what people understand about themselves. So I think this concept is very applicable to literally what's going on here. I think the human being, it's not 2.0, we'll just call it 2.0 in reference to what we believe we are. We believe we're more an original reiteration of a human being. But it's probably like 1,000.0 or 10,000 subtle changes. Or if it's Dark City and they reset every night or change, then it's millions point oh. And we're not 1.0. We're if this is Andy a million point oh, then we're like 500,000.0, whatever. At some point though, throughout most of our lives, we went along with it too. We were reset likely too, like the Dark City. For, of course, the first 30 years or so of my life, I was completely a child of the Matrix, in a cubicle, and all that was important is how do you get a bigger cubicle and a bigger job title and a bonus or whatever. It's all that mattered, of course, and all this bull crap. I did the rat race, and just like many of you here. But the point is, at some point, we understood we're on the ship of fools and the river of insanity, and we jumped ship and swam to the shore. So the ship Andy continues to sail away from us, and things get stranger and stranger looking as time goes by because Andy's just sailing away. And, Andy looks back at us and he thinks we're completely insane, just like your family members that you've told certain things to, and your friends. And Tony, my friend Tony from high school, just would shake his head from the back of the ship of fools in the river of insanity and just shake his head back at Matt and said, "What happened to him? What happened to him? When did a good man go bad? Isaac from the Love Boat, pina colada, please. Utah, give me two." He's on the Love Boat on the ship of fools in the river of insanity, looking back at us, and we talked about this before. Tony and these people on the Love Boat slash ship of fools would be right. We would be insane to them. We would be strange to them, and we would, as time goes by, as they get more foreign to us, we become more foreign to them. But they would be right because we're here now. Okay, from outside the snow globe, looking down from the spiritual aspect of you that's not here, or your consciousness that's not here, attached to higher self or whatever. Of course, we'd be right in terms of what's important. But we are here now, right? We are here now. We have the rest of our lives to live out. In terms of the metrics here, if somebody hands you a sheet of paper with little check boxes, Tony would be able to check his boxes, and we wouldn't. He would be right. We would be crazy and insane from his perspective. And his perspective, at least from here, he is part of this reality. It's the only thing that matters. Okay, so he would be right. They would be right. So um, it is an interesting dynamic because both of us, we become more foreign to each other as time goes by. Because remember, I think it is like Dark City, and it's just a new reiteration of a human being is constantly being produced. So if reality itself moves over here, everybody that has tuned themselves to the frequency to be accepting what the reality wants to, basically I call it a download, they'll just move and shift with the reality. They'll move and shift with it, which we're standing on the bank, we then become farther away. We're not moving and shifting with anything. And basically, as days go by, becoming freaks. Dark City, everybody goes to sleep in their soup bowl. Everything resets, and we're just standing there awake on what the F is this? Look at all this shit. Look at the Empire State Building just became like a little tiny house in the Shire. Just was the Empire State Building. Now Frodo can barely fit in that fucking thing. Everything's changing, and then this guy, it's a metaphor or an analogy or in terms of Dark City, how people change and they go along with the reset of reality. Where this guy was a janitor and now he's a senior vice president of a law firm. That's just a way of saying he was somebody that was normal from our perspective. We like to hang out with. Now is somebody we don't even recognize. So Dark City, in a really weird, dark way, is pretty accurate. I think we live in a gigantic Mandela effect that changes reality constantly. And I don't think we're completely not affected by it. I believe if I think we'll talk about the whole reality being one gigantic Mandela effect some other time. I think there are thousands of millions of things that change, and somehow we're all just go along with it as if it's always been normal. And if you look back at the history, or go back and find old VHS tapes of Moonraker, pull it out of your attic, Dolly never had braces. There is no date of change when something in Dark City resets, or something in the Matrix or in the Mandela effect resets. It's the way the reality works is it's always been that way. It moves back through time. So the Mandela effect, if you're at all affected by itself, proves retrocausality. There's no difference between something moving out in the past, I mean going back into the past, and moving out into the future. There is no date of change. It's always been that way, and we sync up with it too. But I think as we're tuning ourselves to a different frequency, you know, everybody, Andy is on this dial. This is what they're receiving. We've moved ourselves down the dial. Let's see what they're receiving, Andy.
No, you don't. Yes, I do. And feel free to be irreverent as possible. Because you do know that I did not get out of ninth grade. That's why I cook for a living.
These wacky morning shows. I mean, it tells you what a human being evolved into, where they're like getting up looking forward to listening to that. Most of us that have just shifted ourselves off the frequency, one of the manifestations of that is finding these morning shows really irritating and disturbing, and the same old canned laughter and just laughing at nothing. And I don't even when I was a child of the Matrix starting to come out of a little bit, going like, who's listening to these stupid morning shows? And with the internet, just the fact that this still exists in 2021, you can just pull out a radio that basically the design of this is 1972.
The thing about Hoda is she's so incredibly positive. Yes.
Yeah, people driving to work listen to this. I mean, who could possibly? I mean, it tells you, how far. I was going to say how far the ship of fools has sailed, but no, because people have always liked that these radio shows and these early morning programs haven't changed in 40 or 50 years. So anyway, guys, Andy's on that frequency, and I don't think there's some dark subliminal coming through this, but whatever the reality wants, Andy's going to go along with. And I said a few videos back, they don't need if the reality itself, and I'm people like saying, "What are you talking about with that?" I'll touch on that for a few minutes. If they want everybody back in a face covering, then they don't have to. Anybody that's down on this frequency, the billions around the world, or I mean, our we're not 1%, we're 1/100th or less of 1%. And even in this truth community, 90 whatever percent in the truth community is completely misguided, completely chasing exactly what the system and the things that they want them to chase, going down the wrong rabbit holes. So you know, we're 1/100th of 1%. But if you're down here on this end of the frequency, on this end of the dial, and you're getting the basically on the level with the frequency the reality's putting forth, they don't have to convince Andy to go back into a face covering if that's what they're going to bring, whenever it would be. These people that are right on the frequency will, I don't know how it happens, the mechanism, the technology, they'll just start doing it. Um, in terms of what I witnessed going into the Wawa in March or early April of 2020, it was everything changed here in 4 weeks. To be conservative, I usually say the whole world changed. They put the whole world in a mask in 6 weeks, but here it was 4 weeks. The first time it was right when it started. The first mask I saw was in, I believe, early March or late February of 2020. There was one person in a Target. And I went, I'd never seen that before. I mean, there's not, I know it's more popular in the Asian culture, not here. It just wasn't. And I went, oh boy, this is the first. You knew kind of what was coming. And then it was the Wawa was the metric, was going out on a Saturday morning. The Wawas around here are between 6:30 and 9:30. They're packed. I mean, packed. Landscapers lining up for coffee and office workers, and so weekends they're very very quiet. So I was going on the weekends at the time. Who knows? It was a really weird, creepy situation. Nobody knew what was going on. Hindsight's 2020. And I went in the first week over this 4 week period was just, I don't know. There was just 15 people. Five had a face covering mask, and I went, oh boy, here we go. The next week, it was almost 100%. Well, maybe like 70%. Okay, this is probably March moving into April of 2020. The week after, it was 100%. They still I just got my stuff and got out. And then I remember going for 4 weeks in a row. The next week after that, they, like zombies, World War Z, Brad Pitt movie World War Z, aggressively moved to remove me from the store. You can't come in here without. Do you have a? And I knew they would be, and I had it shoved in here, and I could see what was coming. And one person actually walked around from around the side of the counter at Wawa. You need to be wearing. Okay, okay. And then that was for the Northeast. That was it. Um, I know I get a lot of crap from people that in their little neck of the woods they refuse to do it. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I just call me a wimp, call me whatever you want. But in blue state, Northeast I-95 corridor, certain parts of California. I didn't want to deal with. I'm going to make a statement every time and have them move around the counter, and some managers will try to throw me out, and others, and then I can have a shout down conversation and throw a ton of energy into the matrix and a ton of loose energy out. I'm not doing that. Wasn't for me. Wasn't for me. I'm not going to change the world. Okay, I've got. This is how I try to propagate certain messages and share certain insights. That's not my thing. Okay. So if you want people still give me crap, that's a wimp. Oh, say whatever you want. that was not that was not for me. Okay. I'm not. So anyway, guys, the point was, to change an entire society. We'll just this case, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people on the I-95 corridor from Northern Virginia up through Maine in 4 weeks. You can't do that in 4 weeks unless people are on a frequency, unless there's some sort of download that's coming. You don't. The point is, you don't have to convince them. Many people will be like, "Well, is it really how?" They just went along with it. Okay, now we know that we don't have to keep talking about the same thing. So, but that doesn't mean everybody's on the exact frequency. There could be some. Let's see what the morning show's doing.
Questionable purchases, like a 20-foot feather
Oh,
boa.
and these radio shows are so pathetic, and you'd think, why? How is even one person listening? And they'll still bombard you with for a 60 minute block, maybe 20 minutes, sometimes close to 20 minutes, at least for the sports talk stations, close to 20 minutes of commercials for every 60 minutes you listen. And it's so bad, you would be like hard to listen even if there weren't any commercials. So
With the
anyway,
Geico, it's
oh,
obviously
it's
a good
Geico.
idea.
It's what you do. Oh my gosh, is that going to be? That could be. I have to take that out. I just, guys, for I have to literally find that and take that out because that was a Geico commercial, and who knows if that's going to hit me with something because I just put it. I'm not kidding. It was 3 or 4 seconds of a Geico commercial. The bot will recognize it and then flag the video in some way. That's copyrighted work. Um, so those that are just off the frequency, they still need to be convinced. Not everybody's exactly on frequency. Some people are, on the little static, little bit off. They still need to be convinced, but very quickly they'll of course end up complying within a few more weeks to do exactly what the reality wants. They have all the tools at their disposal to convince anybody that's close to the frequency, but not exactly on the frequency, which of course they send out their flying monkeys, the media. I mean, they have, I was going to say they have control, but it's almost like it's always been that way. Every single major newspaper that's now converted to an online outlet, like the Washington Post, where they have the gall to put the tagline. If you go to the Washington Post, it says democracy dies in the dark. I mean, there's your truth drop. They have to tell you democracy dies in the dark. That, oh, somebody reading this, your Aunt Jenny's like, oh, look, they're exposing everything, and this is real truth, and this is real news, and shedding the light on corruption. It's the exact opposite. The whole thing is a false presentation, and they have to tell you that by saying democracy dies in the dark. So you have all that. New York Times, they control every bit of it, and then all of the TV outlets from CNN and MSNBC to Fox News, just a little bit different spin to think the conservatives, so they believe they're getting something different, so they believe they're getting news that's not biased by the Dartmouth and Columbia University and Brown University and Wesleyan and Vassar and Colgate liberals and Bard College liberals. They're not there. They're not Atlantic Magazine readers, so Fox News really gives them something closer to the truth when it's just one little tiny tweak on the exact same message that's coming from the Ministry of Information, all from the exact same source. And then they still somehow maintain around the world, of course, 100,000 small internet-based or web-based news out, whatever they are. But they're all bot-driven. They're all, we've analyzed certain news stories where you can go to 10 outlets of things you've never heard, and they'll all be a different, I guess, mix mash or juggling of the same bot-driven story, where it'll be the exact same headline, but with the subject moved into a different part, or a dash in a different place, or a comma. It's all bot-driven. So they bombard anybody that's not completely on the frequency that doesn't need convincing. Well, everybody else is going to be convinced very quickly, and mostly because they'll look around and see all the masses that are on the download doing a certain thing, and they certainly don't want to be left behind. Then on top of that, they'll send out the final wave would be the minion wave. Your Hollywood actors talking about how important it is to stay safe, and send out Dr. F and doing his press conferences, and congressional hearings, and all the minions that'll start running around. And guys, then everybody is quickly, all the chickens that were allowed to be free range are quickly corralled back into the individual pens on the China Ocean Shipping Company, River of Insanity with the Ship of Fools. Should we call the Ship of Fools the China Ocean Shipping Company? Or maybe, what was the one that blocked the Suez? Was it Timberline? No, Evergreen. Timberline's a sneaker or a shoe or something. Evergreen was the one that blocked the Suez. Or yeah, that was completely real. It just was it was like any ship captain. They get tired, man, and just, anybody could fall asleep at the wheel of a 400 million ton ship as it's going through the most critical part of the Suez. That just can happen to anybody. So, and then it makes sense why all of the militaries around the world just didn't mobilize. Russia didn't send in a whole crew to help out, and the United States didn't send the entire Army Corps of Engineers, and the French engineers that maintain the water stations that should have put out the fire in Notre Dame that were never switched on. They just had three hoses on the thing. People literally running down the street with their empty beer from the Champs Elysees, whatever they had left from their cafes, could have poured it on and done better than the fire company in Paris, which is supposedly part of the army. So, they didn't. The world didn't mobilize any of its resources, just left it up to some drunks in a tugboat, and they'll get it done in Egypt. They'll figure it out. No, the whole world's losing $100 billion a day. Out. We can't impose on Egypt. They'll figure it out. But the tugboat captains are drunk. Oh, they'll do it. Obviously the whole thing was by design. Of course it was. And I think, not to stray too much, guys, but I think it one of the main reasons for what was done, and I put this out, and just maybe not the main reason, but I think this is absolutely a factor, was to feed the sentient world simulation of the Whopper computer a tremendous amount of data, how a disruption like this influences commerce around the world. I really believe that was one of the main reasons it was done. And just when it got close to certain things starting to really collapse and break down, oh, coincidentally and amazingly, the drunks sobered up and cleared the damn ship. Who could possibly buy these? Well, to the people on the River of Fools and the Ship of Insanity and the Evergreen, or the China Ocean Shipping Company, they would think we're out of our mind for questioning a story. What? Matt, you and your conspiracy people question that a ship didn't get you. You guys are gone, man. It's like Joshua, yeah, Joshua, yeah. You guys are gone. That's what they would think, and they would be right because they're in the reality matrix, and everything makes perfect sense if you're on that frequency. So, guys, enough of this. I'm not going to end the video, but let's go back to the absolute basics. If we're going to talk about who the masses are, who is Andy? Sorry, Andy. I mean, you're not gonna file any sort of discrimination suit against me. I'm singling you out here. That, as far as I know, stuffed characters have no rights yet. But you never know. You never know what's coming. I could hear from a lawyer on behalf of abused stuffed toys. Um, who are these people around us? And in terms of the light beer from Miller, less filling, tastes great debate, there's more than two options here. But let's just from the very basic level explore. We know your best friend. Something's changed. Like you're different, he's different, or she's different. So we get into here. We just have to. You can't have a conversation like this without touching on NPCs. Just to introduce the concept and spend 30 seconds. Is it an NPC? All right. Not to say the same thing that we've all heard over and over again, but one of the interesting things that has mostly come from Tony, who gives me a lot of great information, which this resonated with me. He absolutely believes in the organic portal concept or the NPC. We're not sure how many people out there are not the same as you. The key point here, to back up even further, is there are a lot of different types of there are different types of people here, or different types of incarnations. You are not the same. You could be, it's not solipsism, but you could be in a tiny, tiny minority in compared to the other incarnations here. So if it is an organic portal or a NPC, it's not like completely a video game character. Tony and probably a few others would say, look, a body here, they have the same body. And then, again, I don't know this, guys. I'm just giving you different positions from different types of people. And I'm, pretty good at explaining things and keeping things simple. Um, they would say that a body, they're in the same body that you're in. A body, needs to be animated in some way. It needs an electric spark. It needs a soul. A soul is necessary to animate a body or an avatar. Now, in terms of people that I've listened to over the years that seem to have a good understanding of this stuff and the travel out of body and all the stuff I haven't done, I mean, they would say you here inside the body. The next level up is soul. The highest level up is spirit. So they do differentiate between soul and spirit, which does make sense to me or resonates with me. Where Tony says these people you call NPCs, the young man that checked you out when you were going through with a few groceries or whatever, he had this blank stare, like he just had this, he just was like you said a few things to him and he just like looked right through you. I mean, not every some NPCs are very, that's not a good representation of NPCs. Of course, you could have this, however, whatever form they exist in. You could have an extremely smart senior partner at a law firm managing $1 million deals at once, and that could be an NPC. So I don't mean to imply those that totally believe in the NPC theory, they're not all these mindless people at the, checking you out or whatever. They could be, they could be governor. Look at Cuomo. I mean, who would think that thing has any sort of Rainbow Bridge, not a San Francisco Rainbow Bridge, but I'm talking about like Thor and presentation of Odin in Norse mythology, Rainbow Bridge to something out of here. Like, look at Cuomo. I mean, who would, so they're not, there's different levels of, they still can be all NPCs with different levels of intelligence. And just because you can manage the ins and outs of this matrix and make yourself a ton of money and get yourself power and prestige doesn't mean you're not an NPC. But the point was, Tony would say, it's a body. It needs to be animated. It needs a spark. They have a soul. Okay, that doesn't mean they have a spirit. The soul, it's some sort of connection to the realm or the earth itself, or Tony would say animated by, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like Gaia or whatever this is here. that it does create a tremendous amount of energy per, like, L.C. King's model of how it creates energy. The sun obviously works together with the moon. I mean, it's so obvious from an inner knowing perspective. And I would never, I'm not saying I knew this, but I'm just saying it's obvious when you listen to like an L.C. King presentation, you're like, yeah, that's what's happening. You don't, I would never be able to come up with it on my own. Here comes Zara. But the sun working, whoop, there she goes. The sun working with the moon, of course, coincidentally, the exact same size. It's brother from another mother, from brother from the same mother. They're of the same thing. They work together. The positive, the negative, working with L.C. King would say the earth and working with the oceans as the salt bridge to have a continuous cycle of of energy created as the sun works with the moon. And if anybody's screaming at me saying, "Well, Matt, you're always talking about Matrix and Sims game, and why would you need to physically create energy?" I don't look. It is some sort of simulation video game, but a level that we just can't wrap our head around, that we can't possibly understand. All I can understand is I can look at a Sims game, but it obviously there's a physical element here, and things are probably not very physical as it seems to be when you drop a brick on your foot, but that doesn't mean certain, even though it can be a simulation, certain kind of physical things need to happen, like L.C. King's presentation of how the whole realm creates energy working with the sun, the moon, the earth, and the oceans as a salt bridge. Whatever. Okay, it doesn't. Let's not get too into the weeds on that. The purpose of talking about it was it creates this realm creates energy, and in some way, according to Tony, it could this the NPCs or the organic portals have a soul, likely, but that just means something that needs to energize or animate the body. And this, do I know? No, but it does resonate with me that not everybody here is the same. Not that we're going to do a huge sidebar, but he would also say that the minion class of the Melvin P types and the George Soros types and the Lady Gaga types and the Alec Baldwins and the Governor Cuomo's and approaching it. But what's he saying now? Um, he's saying in New York State, if you haven't if you haven't rented the movie, you can't get into certain venues. Just give me a gold star, or whatever you want to do to me. Just, can I just at least let me be proud as I'm huddled off to the ghettos. Well, fine. They do actually. We have somebody screaming at me. They do. There's a lot of high schools and even NFL teams now that you have different wristbands. And by the way, guys, that is such a it's just to normalize. If the NFL is doing it, then it's okay. If the NFL is doing it, then it's kind of cool or it's necessary. The NFL, of course, leads culture for 100 million men, and like they show a picture of the one defensive back. He hasn't rented the movie, so he has a certain type of wristband, and they're in training camp. Of course, the other defensive back, he's rented the movie. They've all rented the movie. If you are in the NFL, you think there's anybody in the NFL that's going to push back on society when literally 99 whatever percent of those that are there are about fame, fortune, money, women, Bentleys, just completely playing the game and 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 coveting everything that the materialistic reality serves up. So you're going to have people that aren't going to get that aren't going to rent them. They all, and unless a few people have some medical issue or whatever. So in other words, when you see NFL players with the different wristbands, it's just a presentation for the masses. So that, oh, if the NFL's agreed to do that, I guess it's okay for my local shop to exclude me if I don't wear it. That's all it is. Anyway, so there's different types of incarnations where according to Tony and others, and it does resonate with me, where the Lady Gagas and Jeffrey Lurie, who owns the Philadelphia Eagles, they're just creeps. The creep class, the minion class, is according to Tony, a different type of incarnation than you are, and much bigger, big fish in a small pond here, more powerful, have knowledge of potential past lives, knowledge of ancient records. But in terms of if you could back up far enough, like you could say cosmically, or in terms of what's important, he would say that you're much more powerful or spiritually progressed. Like again, this is not my thing. I'm just interpreting what he has said, and I was gonna say it's a little bit similar to some other things I've heard, but it is what Tony presents is has been very unique. And he would say, you seem like we're just this beaten down class here. We won't rent the movie. We're going to be shut out of venues because we won't wear our gold star. But he goes, ultimately, if you back up far enough, you're way ahead. Like, and I don't have any metric to put it in, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. But you're like 100 million times more spiritually progressed than Melvin P. Like all the money in the world don't matter. So we get the sense that that's the case, whether some of the particulars about the different types of people are real or not. And it just a couple more minutes on this topic. We'll just go round and round, and we'll come out the other side with no real much better understanding because this is ultimately a screen exercise. We don't the person down the cul-de-sac. Well, what exactly are they? Are they they're an NPC, organic portal, or is that somebody? The other possibility was, is that somebody that started the same as I or the same as you, Matt, and then they started out real Pinocchio boy, and then they just gave so much of themselves away by merging with the system and bowing down and taking the knee to the reality and taking the knee to the system. They gave so much of themselves away that they've reverse Pinocchio themselves into wood. There's smart people that do believe that karma aspect or giving pieces of yourself away, and even as it's portrayed in the last three Harry Potter movies, like Horcruxing your own spiritual self into this material plane. A lot of smart people, it's 50-50. A lot of smart people really believe that you can do that. You can start off as a real boy Pinocchio and reverse Pinocchio yourself into wood. And then Tony amongst others would be like, no, you can. Your higher self would never live. You might have more work to do, or you might have not benefited your higher self here and just sloughed off. But your higher self would never allow key vital aspects of yourself to be given away. No, that ain't gonna happen. And it's the same line of thought with the no consequences motorcycle gang that comes after me, and Matt, I am of divinity itself. I am of original creation. I am of higher self. I am of God. There ain't, I might make the wrong decisions here, but there is no, I'm not going to doom myself into the abyss that they would say, the no consequences people. So that's not the purpose of this video. That discussion rekindled that same light beer from Miller, less filling tastes great conversation again. It's just the people around us. There's different types of people. And ultimately, here we are, we're going all the way around and we're right back, and we still don't know who the guy down the cul-de-sac is any better. So this is just a general, I mean, most of you didn't need what was just discussed, but there are some new people here that it might help them a little bit, just saying, yeah, don't try to always, and the main thing that comes out of this is, if they're not the same as you or they need help, don't be so upset with them when they don't get it. If they're just on the ship of fools and they're going along with everything, and oh, here comes the mask back, and they just go right along with it, don't be so angry at them. You have to understand that, don't, I'm not, maybe in the past I was like, treat them like pets. That's not right either. But if you see them as they're just completely Andes, lost on the frequency, on the ship of fools, for one, they're going along with everything, and they might not even be the same type of incarnation that you are, you know, spiritually. How can you get upset at them? That we want to get upset at them. And oh, Aunt Jenny's putting the face mask on. I mean, right as soon as the news starts talking, she either has like a million more lifetimes of work to do, or she might not even be the same as you. So who cares? Don't get so upset at these people, even if it's your spouse. And a lot of people struggle with spouse issues. And that doesn't mean, I think, I don't think Tony would say that just if it is NPC energized or animated by wherever the whatever animates the soul here, but from Gaia or whatever. I don't think they would say they're just completely useless background things like a rock. I don't think they would say that. I just think you just say that, think of, don't be so negative about it. Think of yourself. If you are understanding who you are, think of yourself as lucky that, and also, Matt, that's arrogant. You think you're this highest level spiritual evolution, and I agree. We'll never know. We'll never know. We come in here with a mind wipe, but you get a sense as to who you are if you get off the frequency. We'll never know, but we can see. we'll never know, but we have certain abilities at this point, right? Presentation comes on the news. We see through it in 30 seconds. Can an NPC do that? I don't think so. Then that would lead me, even though I don't know, to believe I'm not an NPC. I'm not being arrogant, saying I know I'm this and that. We can see through the ruse. We're the one when David Copperfield showed the Statue of Liberty, then everybody, he just entertained, people with like they put on a false Price is Right game and put on a bunch of bull crap as the stage slowly turned around, and then the now he made it the Statue of Liberty disappear, and the curtain opens up. And there's no Statue of Liberty, and all the audience is like, they turned the stage. Or could they all have been in on it and paid? Sure, but they turned the stage slowly, and then they entertain people with a false Price is Right presentation and whatever bullcrap they threw at the audience while they slowly turned the stage. We'd be the one person that would be like, "Did you ever think they just rotated the stage? Open the back curtain and see if it's still there, you jerks. We can see this shit. We're the one, So I doubt NPCs can do this. They so yeah, we get a sense, we get a sense of who we are, and ultimately that's why we'd never go back. We never want to go back, Cipher in the Matrix. I don't care. Who cares how good the meat is? Just give me the damn tasty wheat for the rest of my life. I feel sorry for the 20 somethings or whatever. Somebody comes to me right now and be like, Matt, here's an elixir. You can go back and be 25. I would be like, no way, dude, no way. I don't want. I wouldn't. Would I want it? Well, then, Matt, why wouldn't you want to be older? Just get it over with. I wouldn't want to be older either. I'll take. I'm 50. I wouldn't go forward. I wouldn't go back. Just like if somebody came to the door and said, "I'll give you $1 billion for your Fifi Addy cat." I wouldn't think for it wouldn't tempt me for a second. $1 billion. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but it absolutely wouldn't. When you get to a certain point, I'm sure a lot of you wouldn't be tempted by it either. Um, so there's different types of people, guys, and it's kind of as everything here is an inversion, it does make sense that, I mean, just this is just will resonate with your common sense, with your inner knowing and tuning fork, that if everything here is an inversion, I mean, this is just so blatantly common sense that the stars and the winners here are not winners outside of here, or in terms of what's really important, are not winners. They probably losers. So if you're completely so in that, but if everything's an inversion, man, the beaten down homeless person who is, he's eating or she's eating so poorly, they're starting to develop certain medical conditions, and that person, that's probably the highest evolution of a person, or maybe not across the board, but you know what I'm saying? That if everything's an inversion, I would say spiritually or whatever, if I had to place my chips, I would put all my chips on the homeless person that's been beaten down, not somebody that makes all the wrong decisions, and somebody that's just been beaten down with every bit of bad luck. I'd put all my chips there and say spiritually, or from if you back up far enough and look down, that person is so much more advanced, into cosmically, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to put words to it, than a Melvin P. or a George Soros or somebody that's just introduced as an upcoming artist on the Grammys. And and guys, it just in terms of being people reverse Pinocchio themselves, and we think, Matt, it's awfully arrogant to say, oh, you're coming here, you and your little group are the highest spiritual incarnations, and then that's so arrogant. But again, I admit we don't know what we really are. Maybe we won't know until, but you get a sense as to who you are in terms of noticing how things we can see right through things. And the example just came last night. It was Simone Biles, the gymnast, from Return to the Balance Beam. So just 30 seconds to those who don't know what's going on. I talked about the Olympic presentations, or the false Olympic presentations, in the last video. And Simone Biles, who leading up, they call her the greatest of all time, the GOAT. Somebody pointed out to me that I think they pushed the GOAT initially with Muhammad Ali, but then it was assigned to Roger Federer, and they love the GOAT. And somebody's like, well, Matt, that's the Baphomet. Yeah, we know. I mean, I just when I talked about it's all because of their belief set, their astrology. Yeah, I know it's all related to that. People drop the Baphomet too quickly. Like unless you know exactly what power they harness from the Baphomet is represented by that Levi painting or whatever. Unless you really know, you shouldn't just throw out like the first grade truth. We're like, oh, that's the Baphomet. That's why I don't go there very often. Unless you really know what you're talking about with that, and then and the power they derive from it. So that's why in general I'll talk about, if they assign the goat, it's something to do with the way they harness power. The creep minion class, per their astrology. Things I don't understand, so I don't really go there. I can notice what's happening and how they operate. As I've said, I can read the matrix code a lot, but I don't, in terms of what ultimately how they're using something, I don't know, and I don't want to be in the eyes wide shut parties where they're going to ask me for my password. All Tom Cruise had to say was, there ain't no password. So, I don't know, but I just know you can sniff out the matrix code. I sniffed it even when they presented big on Roger Federer. I'm like, this goat thing, you know, whatever. But then it was really easy to see through with the Simone Biles thing. Weeks and weeks and weeks leading up. Greatest of all time, greatest of all time. I mean, every news report, every and I know I need to wrap this up. I said 30 seconds, sorry. Um, but then they actually showed her posing, holding the leash of a goat. I mean, and then of course, but people they always have to give the pedestrian explanation for what happened was, Matt, when you put that kind of pressure on somebody, of course she got the gymnastic jitters and doesn't know where she is in the air and mentally broke down when she was so much pressure was applied. And per the last video, you can kind of sniff it out that, no. What are the chances, though? I know they put pressure on her with a goat and everything, but what are the chances that, of all the people, all the gymnastic presentations we've watched since Nadia Comaneci, this just happens to happen to the one they call the goat, and it's just too perfect of a coincidence. And then of course the Nike commercial started, showed no, just an empty press conference room with no press in the stands, and then started the immediately started talking about an athlete's mental health, and then Michael Phelps with his emotional appeals about you don't know what it's like, and all. He's about to go into tears, sitting there with Mike Tirico, and Mike Tirico like his handler with his hand, up his back like a marionette strings or something. But then, okay, if we weren't right about that, then last night it was confirmed. Okay, this is ultimately where I need to go. Ultimately, it was confirmed. So before Simone Biles, by the way, spoiler, I guess, would you tape last night or whatever, but she did return for one event and she won a silver medal to the Chinese. A statement being said there, yeah, it's generally how they do business. I don't, I don't. It's hard to fake, to stage a balance beam because you really do still have to execute, but it doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. Whether you took a message out of the Chinese inserting themselves as the gold medalist on top of the GOAT, the United States is second to China. Is that a message about what China will be versus America going forward? Maybe, but who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Um, the Chinese won. Simone Biles had a solid beam performance and got second. But the point is that there was a song and a music video produced when she was right before, I believe, she took the balance beam about the emotional or mental trials of Simone Biles and of athletes' mental health. And I forget exactly how the song went or what the lyrics were, but it said narrated and music by Taylor Swift. So, I mean, oh, if that's not, no, that wouldn't be planned. So, how would that have happened if you just want to think that through? So, what was it be? Today would be Wednesday. I don't know. Say it was maybe a week ago. Say 1 week, about Simone Biles bows out, or maybe even a little bit more than a week, 8 days. But so they just scrambled and mobilized and get Taylor Swift's agent on the line. Why? We need her to do a music video and we're going to pay her enough money where it makes, what kind of money is going to move Taylor Swift to, and can you narrate this? And can, look, if somebody's yelling at me, I hear you. Is it possible they could have gotten Taylor Swift to come and make a music video and a narration for Simone Biles just in support? Okay, sure, it's possible, but in terms of all the elements that just didn't quite make sense, and then they have music and narration by Taylor Swift music video before she gets back on the balance beam. No, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. You know, who knows where they want to take this or what they get out of it. And even in terms of the many times they showed her in the stands, she'd be with Sony Lee and all the others, and they all in masks except Simone, with it pulled down, or she was she's was the focus of every time they went to the stands. And okay, whatever. We don't need to spend too much time on it. I know to anybody outside of our circles. Am I saying it was 100% fake? I don't know. No, but it certainly seems like a complete system set up and contrived, and just noticing the matrix code. But again, it is funny to think how insane that would be to anybody on the ship of fools, your Aunt Ginny or your grandparents or your father, your mother, your brother, anybody on that ship on the Evergreen Line sailing down the river of insanity. I mean, they would almost be it would almost get to the point of disgust in looking back at us the way when Pam leaked to my mother, like, what he believes about what happened in Connecticut. The Dustin Hoffman movie with Robin Williams, Captain Hook. Pam's like, what he believes about that. And my mother was like outraged, like just like venom. See, they would do the same thing. They would look back from the ship of fools, the it would call it just a China Ocean Shipping Company, and they'd be like, these Matt and his people. It's so sad. It's so sad. And they would talk amongst themselves, and it's so sad. These people are. It's one thing to talk about buildings going down in 10 seconds, but he believes that what happened to Simone Biles was some sort of setup, some sort of some sort of theme brought forth by the Illuminati. It's so sad what's happened to him, and it it would seem that way, no doubt about it. They just can't see it. They just can't see it. And it's probably not a lot different than they say some people that are completely schizophrenic, like they're seeing many of those people are seeing like pure reality, like they're always on DMT or ayahuasca, pure reality, and they go nuts over it. But they appear crazy to us, and I'm not saying everybody that's diagnosed a certain way is closer to the truth than we are, but I believe there are many that are. And yeah, they seem completely crazy, and we do the same thing. Oh, it's so sad. This person, this schizophrenic, and maybe they don't know what they're seeing, but maybe if they knew they were seeing, you're seeing the pure chaos of pure reality. Of course, it would drive you mad, like the scenes in the Elric series where they come to the edge of the multiverse, whatever certain plane, and it's the edge of chaos, and outside was it Count was it Count or Count Earl Albrecht's out the window of his castle is the pure chaos realm, just flowing swirls and colors, and anything that holds form loses form in just a few seconds, and complete faces that come and melt, and just if they're seeing that, it would drive you crazy. So I need a reality that won't drive me crazy. What's that? So hit the high. Well, that's John Cougar, who later returned to his roots. John Mellencamp, who actually did met in L.A. Darl and brought her to this small town. He married he married I think well he she was hot. She wasn't one of the ones in George Michael Freedom, but I know to the Trans T Army, of which Joan Rivers is an honorary inductee. I know, I get it every video. I got it last time. Every every woman that was in the George Michael Freedom video, not a woman. I know, and that is all that's important in life. I'd take my chances with Linda Evangelicha pulling that sweater up and down in George Michael Freedom. I take my chances. Maybe if it is a man, I don't know. I don't know. Give her a pair of underwear. Maybe I still could look the other way. I don't think so, but you know what I mean. All right. So, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, guys, and World War Z, and all of the movies and the presentation of The Walking Dead, in terms of understanding what Andy is becoming, I do think, you could call it mockery, but it could be other things. We'll just keep it simple. it is a form of mockery. The system's presentation of endless zombie movies and themes is a system presentation as to what they believe the masses are turning into, or what they're trying to turn the masses into, or what they'll look down on the masses, and that's what they think of them. So the zombie, I mean, it's so unnatural. You and I recognized probably almost 20 years ago, let's just say 15 years ago, we were like, what's with all this zombie stuff? And you watch The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and it's not very good. It's the same crap over and over and over. I think they actually will in their presentation of The Walking Dead and the new season, how great it is, and all these reviewers saying you'll sit on the edge of your seat. I think they try to get people to believe it's so wonderful, and because people believe the reviewers think it's so wonderful, they watch it believing it's so wonderful, and it's really not. It's really crap. But they're just announcing what they're turning human beings into. It's just a message, in my opinion. And there's no reason for this. All this zombie stuff came out of nowhere 15 years ago, and it was so big and popular. I went to a gun range once, and the primary gun, or at least what was for sale first and foremost, was you buy zombies. You put the zombies and you shoot the zombies before the traditional, bullseyes or whatever. And there's not just Fear the Walking Dead though. There's the other presentations in movies, of which the one I wanted to talk about was World War Z. World War Z with Brad Pitt, which not only is about zombies, it's about a very rapid and quick spreading of what turns somebody into a zombie, facilitated by a V. A V. The first World War Z, the first 30 to 40 minutes is very interesting, very good. They're in Philadelphia, and the city is like in front of their eyes, literally being turned into people are being turned into zombies. And I mean, just in a matter of minutes, chaos is erupting and things are blowing up. And it is a little chilling how they do the first 30 or 40 minutes. Other than that, it's really not a good movie. You can turn it off. But I think it is the beginning's worth watching. And it is almost like a message being sent there. But this is maybe even more direct, because it's like you could say it's a mind V, but also a real V turning people into zombies. And if anybody's crying out that's Matt, that's a representation of what the renting of the movie is. That different V, maybe. We don't know what the renting of the movie is. We don't know. I'm getting a little tired of endless BitChute presentations and endless death and doom and gloom, and we don't know. Okay, we don't know what it's for. If it's a simple bow down before the system, take the knee before the system, etherically give yourself away, and there's nothing at all harmful in it, like or if it's just a soul taking the knee before the system, or if there is graphene and this stuff in it that's ultimately going to harm this group or that group, or we don't know. But I assure you, the endless presentations on BitChute, and this doctor talking about this, and this ex-Pfizer CEO talking about it, it's a waste of time. A waste of time. Do we analyze reality at that level anymore? Do we? Oh, look at this presentation. This is ex-Pfizer saying what we're going to do for ourselves is looking at it at this point, in my opinion, just gives energy and power to it. The wave, whatever it is, oh, that's a defeatist attitude, what you're going to present, Matt. Maybe the wave is coming in, it's massive, and you want to get out there and watch your endless BitChute videos and just get your sheet of plywood and you're standing there with Tia Leone in impact, as deep impact as the damn 40,000-foot waves coming in. You're just going to hold it back with your sheet of plywood. You got little handles screwed in. Fine. To me, it's a gigantic, massive wave, and there ain't no stopping it. It's just taking care of yourself. So at least metaphysically, when the wave hits, it just if physically you might be washed into it and smashed on the rocks. Who cares? You, me, all of us. Who cares? Who cares? We're gonna be. This is life's a blink of. It's a blink. It's you know we're you can't isolate a moment. It's all from outside this perspective. It'll be like stepping into I've said stepping into a closet and stepping out in 1/1000th of a second. That's the length of this life. It's a joke to try to do all this stuff to prolong it and extend it. And my mom's cousin went through. She has my mom always said good longevity genes, or she would have died a long time ago. She's dead now, but she went through almost 10 years of hardcore chemo. And, it's one thing if there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You say, you can fully recover from this and live 15 good years. So that's one thing. But just to constantly hold on just for a little bit more life for what? Matt, that's easy for you to say. You get in that situation. See it if you don't hold on to life. I don't, I can only say what I believe I would do. Okay, you're right. I've never been in that situation. What's that stupid song? I'm not a coward, but I've never been tested. That dumb song. Never knock on wood, but it's basically saying, would you step up? That song is like, would you step up if when you're ready to step up? It's like Rocky 15 or whatever it was. I don't know. They can't keep calling it Rocky, so now they call it Creed. He gets a certain type of cancer, and Rocky's like, I ain't doing it. I forget how that went. Like, did he live, or they had a Creed too with Rocky? So he's like, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. I ain't going. If there's again, if you can be cured, but what happens with my mom's cousin was just, there was no curing it. It was just, and she go through this horrible, horrible weeks of treatment. It metastasized, and I think she stayed alive 6 years. But to me, it is an attachment. It's crying out that this light, it's an attachment to this world. But I'm sorry, guys, for going down this path. So World War Z and all these zombie presentations it's just a mockery of what they're turning the masses into. Um, the role of the renting of the movie. Just sit back and we don't know. Take care of yourself. That's all you can do. That's all you can do at this point. They're the somebody emailed me is very interesting the other day, and I do believe this is generally how it works. They put it in a little bit a different way so I could put my head around it, saying, the as above, the so below. The stars, Livette will tell you this. It's all the sky wheel. What is going to happen? It's not 50 years in advance. It's 50,000 years in advance potentially. Or it's 20 some thousand years in the cycle of the ages. It's whatever's coming is coming. But I think these creeps, they harness it somehow. They don't create it. They're not powerful enough to create it. So if you look at the sea thing and what we're in the middle of now, and how it's almost like they saw the wave coming in, and they have their hands on enough reality levers and buttons, and they know how things work, that they can harness it somehow. Okay, the astrology set up, so um, we can use this to get a population to to be ill, or to believe in it, or to we can use this for the propagation of our NWO system. They can't. There's no way they're powerful enough to have created it. Put the whole my 4 week experience into a Wawa into a mask in 4 weeks. There's no way. There's no way. Even in terms of, well, Matt, if Andy and they're pinned down the dial on the download, even if they're pinned down the dial on the download, I'm not giving the creeps that much credit. I'm not saying that they're exactly in their Illuminati control center in their Chernobyl tower, and they're saying, okay, give it to him now. Give him the message. Talk to him like Voldemort talked to Hogwarts, so they'll get the message. Harry Potter. And they'll get and there's nobody talking to a microphone giving him the. I don't know. I will never know the mechanism or how it works, but it's a combination of how they'll do everything they can with the reality buttons and levers to pin somebody all the way down the dial. So essentially, they take what I call the download to go along with what the reality wants. But they don't have the power to do it. The astrology of or what the wave is coming in, and they're I think they're experts at harnessing it. I don't think they can create it. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I don't know enough about it to even talk about it any more than that. Um, it's kind of like with the Mandela effect, where people actually, not too many people, maybe 10%, believe that believe it's CERN, of course, and it's just they're doing it to us, and it's all about the minions. To me, if something changes, whether it be something that seems trivial like a movie line or whatever, it's a symptom, an outward symptom that you notice or people notice of something much greater, something much bigger. It's not like, okay, what's our George Bush walks into the Chernobyl Control Center, Illuminati Tower 2. It says, what are we doing Mandela effect today? Oh, we're going to remove the Kit Kat dash. Oh, can I watch? Yeah, come here, George. Pull a seat out. Jimmy Carter's here too. He brought peanuts. I mean, they don't do it like they can't do it like that. They don't give them too much credit. They might be doing something where the tertiary effect is the removal of a Kit Kat dash, but they're not that, you talk about a big fish in a small pond or whatever. Um, then I think it's similar with the bigger things as well. Bigger things as well. Um, was the 7-Eleven job application submitted in 2001? That certainly seemed like this is a counter argument. It certainly seemed like it's not like, well, it seemed like a counter argument. I was gonna say it absolutely seems like a spell, a ritual, completely planned out in an unnatural way, but it could be similar. Again, the astrology of it, or however they harness their power, it's like, well, hey, we need to do this event with our own creepy spellcraft to get billions of people believing a certain thing, and we could then ride that wave for the next 20 years, which they did. They rode it for 20 years. It does seem to be like the Saturn to Jupiter 20-year cycle. And unfortunately, guys, it does seem like they're going to ride just like, it started big with the 7-Eleven job application, and there was all this hassle and go to the airport and take your shoes off and all this stuff. But then it weaned, it waned, it lost power. Their presentations after that was like a joke, like the Richard Reed, his name was. He was the shoe guy. He was the Al Bundy shoe bomber, Richard Reed, and then he tried to take a pack of wet matches out of his shoes. He was something wrong with that guy. But look, it's all a presentation. No guy named Richard Reed tried to do anything, in my opinion. And then they had the underwear, the edible underwear bomber was another genius that he tried to lace up his Victoria's Secret edibles with certain types of incendiaries, and that didn't go too well either. And then but then it was from their perspective, it was like, oh, constant reminder, and they were basically half retarded on purpose. Because you could say any fool could really screw up a plane. It was just one. If his matches weren't wet, you all would have been screwed. So it gets people to believe any fool can get on a plane. So, but the presentation going forward was so much weaker, like a million degrees weaker. Matt, you can only have 360, whatever. Okay, a million times weaker than the 7-Eleven presentation. For the 7-Eleven presentation, it was like they sent a fax to Thanos himself. Thanos, can you help us out? Come into the Milky Way galaxy for the day and just bring your Infinity Stones and help us out here. It didn't seem like they couldn't do that on their own. There was something else going on. They're not that. The think tanks, I assure you, the think tanks at the Rand Corporation are not smart enough or powerful enough to pull off what happened there's so many reality breakdowns, complete metaphysical reality breakdowns associated with the 7-Eleven job application. But then Thanos is like, listen, I told you I could only stay for the day. I'm out of here. I've got to go invade Asgard or whatever. He left, and then they pulled forth their bullcrap presentations, like their edible underwear bombers and their stuff like that. And before that, what they did with Timothy McVeigh. They can pull that ridiculous stuff off. So hopefully this will be the same way. Um, Hopefully the massive. We don't we we wouldn't go back, and we appreciate what we understand about ourselves, but nobody wants to live like this. Of course, but you just focus on this, guys, and believe it. Believe it will happen, and they can't. It's just like the 7-Eleven job application, in my opinion. Their power is very focused early on, and it wanes. it loses its potency like a fart when the elevator door opens. All right, or it's like letting air out of a balloon. It's going. It's they can't. They'll do it again. I'm not saying they won't. They'll do it. They'll bring something back this fall. The Transor Z, which is the Delta Burke Z. The new Marvel series on the Disney Channel, Loki. Loki is about variants, and then now they have the Delta Burke, and they're gonna try to scare people and back into a mask, and it will. And it in the Northeast, people are already saying the Northeast. I haven't noticed it out, but I don't leave the house much. I haven't noticed it much here, but the Northeast going back into a mask. Oh, they'll do it again. Of course they'll do it again. It's the opposite of what Basher said in Oceans 11 and 12 and 13. It's like you don't play the same gig. You don't play the same gig. I can't do the accent. I have to listen to it. You do a new gig. Don't play that same gig. I can't do it. Sorry. You play, but no, they play the same gig. This is the opposite in this case. They have to play the same gig and try to somehow keep it going for the 20-year cycle. But it's not going to be as when it comes back again, it will have lost power. Believe this. Believe it. Imagine it. Believe it. Think it will have lost power. It will People, even the normie, pinned to the frequency, are going to be like they're just used to the situation. They're not going to be as scared of it. Went through it a first time, and they didn't see just everybody falling, or all their family just going down. And like, yeah, it's Goldilocks, so they know one person that got really effed up, and that person knows somebody, but it wasn't inside their local circle. They're not going to be as afraid of it, and it's all how long they can string it along. And again, these are still, even those people are pinned on the frequency. They're not complete, um, World War Z zombies. They can't just, the Voldemort can't speak to them silently, like in that one Harry Potter movie, and say, just today you will go to work, all in the United States and Canada, all 380 million of you will go to work naked, and everybody just like a zombie. See, if a certain line is crossed, they still, even if they are NPCs, they still have probably a deep memory of there's still a line of normalcy that probably can be crossed. There, so I don't think, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, they're complete zombies. I think that's why it wears off over time. I don't think they'll ever be able to put the society into a mask the way they did in April, May, and June, and July, and I kept going, August, September of 2020. I don't think, of course, if you go out to the streets of New York City, if they decide to ramp it back up or pull the lever, of course thousands of people, but it won't be to the same degree. Maybe it'll be a 9 out of 10. Maybe it'll be close, but it won't be quite the same degree. And every time it's pulled, it will lose effect, power. Just like every time, if even you could be around something, well, it's a bad example, but so I won't go there. But I think it will. They'll try to recreate the effect, but I don't think they'll be able to do it to the same degree. It might be close, but even if they get close, then they'll back off more quickly. You know, it's not. It is pretty darn dark, guys. What the situation we find ourselves in, but it is not time to jump off a bridge. Okay, it's not that dark just yet. It is just it's incomprehensible what they've been able to do, and there's no normal group of human beings or secret societies where they could pull this off. It's just I just to keep going back to that, and I can't explain what that means. I just use that to say the world isn't very real. There's a whole host of things going on here that we can't understand. But for the first grade truthers, go back, that everybody's in on it, and the secret societies are pulling it off, and I mean, come on, give me a break. Give me a break. If certain minion groups are pulling it off, then they're even more on the frequency. They're doing the bidding of something greater, something that stands behind the reality screen, where they think they're not doing it and deriving it of themselves, I would say. I'm not going to give them that much credit. The people, I don't want Matt. Matt, don't go into this diatribe just for a small percentage of. I'll get off in a second, but so the people that they need to eat like you, they get headaches like you, they can get an upset stomach from some bad sushi. I'm sorry to be gross, but they'll go and they sit on the pot. You sit on the pot, and that kind of reminds you this is what a human being is in this incarnation. Okay, it's probably the lowest of the low. Levette says we've come into death when we think of everything's inverted. We think of life as death. It's the opposite. Can there be any much lower? When you sit on the pot, it tells you what this incarnation is about, as low as it gets. So the people that do that sort of thing, just like we do, they're able to plot and plan all this impossible scenarios. And come on, no way. It's just, well, you explain it, Matt. I can't. I don't. So once us trying to figure it out for the rest of our lives. There's just shit going on we can't possibly fathom. Well, good. That tells me the reality isn't very real. And it helps me, the way they work so hard trying to get me to do certain things tells me everything I don't already know about myself. It just gives away to me. So we wouldn't go back. No way. So World War Z, it could even be called World War Z for like an Albert Pike ode, an ode and tribute to Albert Pike with the World War I and the World War II, and he said the Third World War, and people say, well, that the Third World War. Some people say that Albert Pike's Cold War. I don't think so. That's just a fake presentation with there's no Russia doing their own thing and the United States doing. There's a fake presentation, 100%. There's one world system, not countries doing their own thing. And some people would say the war on terror was Albert Pike's World War III. That was referenced in Morals and Dogma. And maybe it was the World War on Terror. That to me, up until recently, would be the most logical explanation on what the World War III reference is. How they created this world, this mock war on terror, get everybody to believe in that stuff. But it could be World War Z with Brad Pitt. The final war reference could be the final the World War Z, or the zombification, or the final reiterations of people throw out terms like mind virus, which to me is just people pinned to the frequency. Or if somebody's screaming at me that I'm not as fearful or concerned by the horrible thing that's in the renting of the movie, and Matt, what's in the renting of the movie is going to create a zombie, and maybe, I don't know, but I'm not putting any more energy into it. The waves, here comes the waves coming in. It had an astrological beginning, um, and a power source, the likes of which we can't even fathom. I can build my own armor. I'm not going to get out and stand next to Tia Leone and her dad at the end of Deep Impact, or whatever it's called, and with a sheet of plywood say, "I can, Tia, get with me. I can hold back this wave with my sheet of plywood." You can't. You're going to be Marky Mark and on that bad, what's that movie when with George Clooney, the Impossible Storm or whatever. They went down. They're gonna capsize. I mean, you can't hold it back. You're going to be Marky Marked in his crab boat. You can't hold it back. You can only protect yourself. Still this talk, and we're going to fight the power. That's what it wants. It wants you to get your fleet of your pickup truck army together and go protest it and fight it. And if you want to fight it, fight it by not giving it any energy. Fight it by never calling the powers that be, or controllers, or just fight it by just imagining it as the scene in Harry Potter as it's just a joke. One of the biggest truth drop scenes of all time in movie history is the Harry Potter 4 or 5 or whatever it is, where Snape is teaching the defense against the dark arts. This is a gigantic truth drop. It's basically the magic we have all in us. I don't people like I don't dabble in it, but it doesn't matter, because I know I understand the power that's in me that transcends this ridiculous construct. I mean, what more do you need to? Once you know that, you have to get magic books and try to cast spells. I don't care to do that shit. I don't care. If you want to do that, fine. But The biggest truth drop of all time, Harry Potter in his class, it says they put a freaking boggart. What a boggart, according to the scene, is something that as soon as the doors open up, it'll transform. It knows exactly what your worst fear is. And tell me that's not how the reality works. So you're supposed to, they tell Ron Weasley, whatever, you cast this spell and you say, it sounds like ridiculous, or, they keep, obviously it's supposed to be ridiculous. And then you think of turning that thing into something completely comical. So they put Ron Weasley up front or whatever, Hermione's Granger, and something really nasty comes out and you just have to, you cast a ridiculous and you just think of it as a joke. And if what's the one that I guess Ron Weasley's it's a spider. Yeah, he hates spiders and he puts like roller skates on it, so it's all flopping around and everybody laughs. Completely removes its power. Pretty much the biggest truth drop of all time. If you just apply that, to apply that to your life. If you get scared of it, that's exactly what it wants. If you can find a way to laugh at it, it ain't what it wants. All right, it ain't what it wants. All right. Oh boy, that's a long one, guys. I think I got everything in. Thanks for watching and listening.